Okay, now it's time to have a look at the buttons. So I'm going to go to the body, collapse it, and after this body definitions, we are going to create one for buttons. So buttons. And for the buttons, I want to make sure the background color is set to fit button BG, which was this nice green color. And then for the pseudo before and after, so before, and let's just do comma here and after, we want display block and then content nothing and clear both. What this will do is to make sure that the container, which will contain these spans, these buttons, which will have this buttons class associated with it, is always the same height as the buttons. Otherwise, it could collapse up and this background color wouldn't be visible. So we have to apply this display block content and clear both to the pseudo before and after of this wrapping container. Okay, so within these buttons, we have button with the previous class, we have button with the play class, and we have button with the next class. And let's scroll up a little bit. And here I want to make sure that these buttons are displayed as block. I want to make sure that their cursor is set to pointer, so it's this clickable icon on the cursor. And then we have width set to 33.333%. And I'm doing this way because we are building our CSS using mobile first approach. So on mobile, these three buttons have to be equal width, filling up the entire width of the container. The height of the buttons should be the same as the overall height of the feet. So feet height. Then for the text align, we want the icons within these buttons to be aligned to the center. So text align center. Then we are going to make sure that the color matches the color that we specified and associated with the feed button color variable. And then float these buttons to the left to make sure that each one is displayed after the other in one line. Okay, so if we save it, then the only two buttons that we want to apply the border to will be the previous and then play button. And these two buttons should have this border on the right hand side. So border right, and it's going to be solid, 1 pixel, and we will simply lighten the feed button background color 7%. If you think that it's not going to be visible enough, then increase this lightening argument here to make it higher, then obviously it's going to be lighter. Okay, so that's for the previous and play, because previous goes first, play goes second. Obviously, the last button, which is this next, doesn't need the border on the right-hand side because it's right at the end. So we don't need the border for that one. Then if we go and specify some styling for play button only, so play. And here we are going to make sure that it's only applying to the button play when it does not have class active associated with it. So if we have play active, these declarations here will not apply. Okay, so opacity we want to set to 0.5, and then cursor I want to set to default, so unclickable like. Okay, so now I think it's a good time to actually try this styling. So what we need to do first is open our app.scss file and import this horizontal fit. Again, we go into components and then horizontal fit. Save and close this file. We need to add the newly generated CSS file, which we will generate in just a moment, to our index.html file. So link, and we link in with the href pointing to current directory, then distribution, CSS app.css. Obviously this file does not exist yet, that's why it's highlighting it straight away. Then rel we're going to specify as style sheet. Okay, save and close this index.html file. Now if we go to the terminal, and now we need to run npm run def, hit return. This will generate our files. If we open distribution directory, CSS, you can see we have app.css, and it's also added, apart from obviously the fact that it combined two of these Sass files, general horizontal feed, it also added the variation with the WebKit of the keyframes which we specified in our horizontal feed right at the top. As you can see here, we only have one version, but it also created the WebKit one for this blinking cursor. And if we close this file, then app.js, here as you can see, Webpack just added its own scaffolding, just a few functions, variables, and so on. So if we close this file, now what we can do is open the web browser, and if we refresh the page, and there we go, that's our styling so far. So we've got the header, we have our buttons with these thin lines only for the previous and play button. Icons are inside as well as they were, obviously background color and so on. Okay, so that's the basics. This will work just fine with the mobile, but if we go back and I will try and resize this browser window, you'll see that when we actually get to the desktop, we still have exactly same structure. And that's not quite what we want to have. We want to have this header on the left, we want to have body in the center, and then these three buttons right on the right hand side. So let's work with our styling to make this happen. If I just move it across here. Okay, let's scroll right to the bottom of this file. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start with the media query. So media, and I'm going to say all devices, and make sure that minimum width is 1024 pixels. So that's the minimum screen width that this styling will apply to. Anything below this, it's considered as tablet, mobile, and so on. Obviously, it may not really be tablet, mobile yet at this point, but that's what I'm going to set it as. Okay, so horizontal feed again, and this time we're going to have display. We're going to use flexbox, so it's going to be flex, and I want all elements to stretch from top to bottom. So if one container, one column, let's say, has more content than the other, then I want its background to be exactly same height as all the other columns. So align items for this purpose, and we're going to say stretch. Then we have position set to relative, and then we're going to go for header, and header will have display. We're going to display it as inline block because I don't want to fill the entire width of the container. Now I need a block, but I need to make sure that the width of this block is only as much as there is a content in it. So we have that for this header. Then for the body, what we're going to say that I want padding right this time to be a little bit more. We want this to be 9 rem. And why do I want this to be 9 rem? Because my buttons now in desktop view, they will have each width of 3 rems. So all together will give us 9 rem. We need to push them because these buttons will use absolute positioning. That's why we have this position relative on the main container. So these buttons can actually go absolutely to the right hand side. Then we need to make sure that we have enough room there on the body so that the content doesn't go over the buttons. Now we are going to add styling for the cover. And cover, we want to make sure that the width this time accommodates this 9 rems. So if we just check what it was originally, if we scroll up, we have our cover here. It was 1.2, so let's add 1.2 to 9 rems. If we scroll down now, so 1.2 plus 9, it's going to give us 10.2 rems. And that's it for the body and the cover. Now we have buttons, so we need to restyle buttons a little bit. So buttons, we are going to display them as flex as well. We are going to give them absolute positioning, so a position absolute. We are going to make sure that they are right at the top of the container and right on the right hand side. So top and right 0, and then Z index, it's going to be 10 to make sure that they are over the content if the content was to go behind them. Okay, then previous, play, as well as next buttons, next. And these three buttons will have width of 3 REMs. And that's all our styling. So if we now run npm run def again, and once it's all done, if we open our browser, refresh the page, nothing changes on mobile, but if we resize the browser window, you can see our blinking cursor is here, our head is on the left. We obviously don't have any content yet, because the only content which we put in doesn't have this active class. The buttons on the right are also displaying nicely. So let's go back to our index.html and let's change this paragraph by adding the class active to it. And let's see what's going to change if we refresh the page now. And as you can see, our content is now visible within the body of this feed. So the only thing we need to do in order to make sure that the feed item is visible is to apply the active class to it. Okay, so that's everything in terms of a styling for our widget. In the next video, we are going to start building our view component.